Anything to report from the break, ladies and gentlemen? All right, we'll continue with cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Officer Gelhausen, I have just a few more questions.
Yes, sir.
Are you familiar with Louisville Metro Police Department policy and procedure concerning the appropriate deployment of long guns, of long-barreled weapons?
I'm familiar with that policy, yes, sir.
What is that?
If I could, I'm not able to speak it verbatim or explain it to you verbatim without actually looking at the policy.
Would you agree with me that the appropriate time for appropriate containment of barricaded subject situations with a known weapon is a time when long guns may be brought out?
It could necessitate the need for that, yes, sir.
And I don't know if you've addressed this or agreed with me or not, but would you agree with me that a person who fires a shot at a police officer and that shot strikes the police officer, would you classify that as an active threat?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Now you do this, you talked about a little bit about the simulator training that you do. That's the videos, correct?
Yes, sir.
Would you agree with me that that's pretty realistic?
To a certain, it has its limitations to a certain extent. I mean, with the way that it's designed, it's intending to do that as much as it can.
But it certainly is not real life, correct?
Correct.
Have you ever timed yourself firing a fully loaded Glock?
No, sir.
So do you have any idea how long that takes to unload a fully loaded Glock by firing it?
There's a lot of different factors that come into play. I do not know off the top of my head, sir.
Would that be a matter of seconds, perhaps?
Yes, sir, potentially.
Would you agree with me that you nor anyone else could testify as to what Brett Hankison perceived on March 20th or March 12th, 2020, March 13th?
Restate the question, please.
Would you agree with me that on March 13th, 2020, at 3003 Springfield Drive, when this event occurred, that neither you nor anyone else could testify as to what Brett Hankison personally perceived?
Yes, sir.
And if Brett Hankison had failed to be able to describe a target and know what was around it, and so on, the rules that you talked about, did he have any alternative other than to just run away?
Objection.
Sustained.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Anything on redirect?
None, Your Honor.
All right, you can step down. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the Commonwealth's next witness.
Yes, Your Honor, it's going to be Cheryl Snyder.
If you take a seat, please. Counsel, would you want to get the exhibits unless you're planning to use those?
No, ma'am, I'll get it.
Thank you. If you'd raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I will.
Thank you.
Please state your name for the record.
Cheryl Snyder,
And where do you work?
Louisville Metro Police Department.
And what position do you hold at Louisville Metro Police?
I'm a Human Resource Director.
Okay. And how long have you been in your position?
18 years.
Okay. And in that position as the director that you just stated, do you have the ability and the role of overseeing HR files, human resource files in the department?
Yes, sir.
And do those include employment records?
Yes, sir.
And at some point during your time with LMPD, was Jon Mattingly employed by Louisville Metro Police Department?
Yes, sir.
At some point after this case, was he released from the hospital and cleared to return to service?
Yes, sir.
And at some point after that, did he choose to retire from Louisville Metro Police Department?
Yes, sir.
And just so that we're clear, do you know what date it was his official retirement would be effective?
Yes, it was June 1st of 2021.
Okay. So just a little under a year ago.
Mhm.
When that effective date became on June of 2021, how many years of service would Jon Mattingly have had with Louisville Metro Police Department?
He had 20 years, 11 months, and 27 days.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Snyder. I think that's all the questions I have for you.
Any cross-examination?
No questions, Judge.
All right, you can step down. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the Commonwealth's next witness.
Yes, Your Honor. It's going to be Officer Phillip Renaud. Renaud.
If you'll take a seat, please. If you'll raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I swear.
Thank you. You may take your mask off while you're testifying if you wish, but you're not required to.
Okay.
Yes, we're still in the morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Please state your name for the record.
Officer Phillip Renaud,
And where do you work?
Louisville Metro Police Department, 8th Division,
And how long have you been with the Louisville Metro Police Department?
about 6 years.
Okay. How long have you been assigned to the 8th Division?
Since March of this past year.
Okay. Where were you prior to the 8th Division?
The 1st Division,
And were you in the 1st Division back on March 12th to March 13th of 2020?
yes.
And what was your assignment in the division at that point?
Forwards beat as a patrol officer.
Okay. And what was your assignment that evening in particular? What do you do in that role?
It just beat cop, answer calls for service.
Okay. And when you were out answering calls, would that be patrolling?
Yes.
Okay. And that evening, did you receive a call reference 3003 Springfield Drive here in Louisville, Kentucky?
Yes.
Can you just kind of go through how you heard about that?
If I recall correctly, the call for officer needs assistance at 10:30 came out over PD3, which is the channel the 1st Division operates on. Responding to that call, I put the address in my GPS and responded.
Do you know how long it took you to get there?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay. When you got there, were other officers already on scene?
Yes.
And when you approached the scene, were you directed to go anywhere? What was your assignment when you arrived on scene?
I don't believe anyone directed me to go anywhere. I looked for work, and it looked like the back of the apartment complex didn't have many officers at it.
Okay. Now, when you got to the back of the apartment, how long did it take you to get from the front to the back?
From the front of the building,
Yes.
oh, it's less than 30 seconds.
Okay. When you arrived in the back of the building, how many officers were on site?
At least a couple more. I don't know how many.
Okay. And did they advise you of anything that was going on in the rear of the building?
Not that I can recall.
Okay. When you got to the back, what did you personally see?
I observed what I believed to be a window or glass door that had multiple bullet holes through it. And I thought that that was the target apartment of the search warrant that had been served.
Okay. So you could actually see bullet holes?
I could see broken glass.
Broken glass, okay. Now, when you're standing there, is anyone directing traffic, for lack of a better term, or are you just on your own?
Pretty much on my own, with between me and the other officers, just trying to find the best point of cover for
Okay.
safety.
At some point when you're back there, is your body cam on?
Yes. Or off or on?
On,
On. It was on the whole time.
okay. And when did you activate this?
I believe it activated around First and Jefferson when I started my code 3 run to the address.
So you had it rolling throughout the scene?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to show you in a second what has been marked as Commonwealth's exhibit. If you hold on one second. It's going to be marked as Commonwealth's exhibit 71. You'll just take a look at the screen here, please. Do you recognize what that is?
I'd say it's the apartment complex in question, but I've never seen an aerial shot of it before.
Okay. Is that the apartment complex 3003 Springfield that you responded to that evening?
Yes.
There's a laser pointer up there. If you would just take and show us where you initially arrived to and then where your placement is in relation to the building, if you can.
Okay. I would have come up this road here. There's a gate there, if I remember correctly. Then I came down this way, saw that there were quite a few officers out front, and I came to this back corner here.
Okay. And is that the position that you maintained throughout your time at the apartment?
To the best of my recollection, yes.
Okay. And your body cam was rolling throughout that?
Yes.
Now I'm going to show you what is preliminarily marked as Commonwealth's Exhibit 154. This clip that I'm about to show you, have you had a chance to review this prior to today?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm going to show you just a brief second of this. Is this the body cam that you were rolling that night when you arrived at 3003 Springfield Drive?
I believe so, yes.
Is it a fair and accurate depiction of what you saw that evening when you arrived?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time I would move to admit Commonwealth's Exhibit 154, which is the body cam of this officer, and then we'll play for the jury.
Objection.
It'll be so admitted.
Officer Renaud, I'm going to go for a second, and then I may pause it and ask you a few questions.
Okay.
Eric, you want? Yes, sir. The lights turned down.
Yes, Anthony, if we could turn the lights down just a little bit. Can you get one more? Is it, if not, it's... Okay. What exactly are we viewing here, Officer Renaud?
This is the back of the apartment building itself. And because we didn't have any good cover, we're just kind of on a hill.
What are you doing in this photo with your gun, your light? Can you just describe the scene for us, what you're personally doing?
This point, I guess I don't know why we don't have the audio, but I believe at this point we see the broken glass, so I'm using the weapon-mounted light on my rifle to attempt to illuminate the area. I was, and I still am, unfamiliar with the layout of this apartment complex, so I believed at the time that that back glass led to the target apartment. So that's what I'm observing and covering.
At some point, do you ever see anyone come out of that apartment, expose themselves? What do you see?
Yes, at some point there was what I believed to be a shirtless white gentleman that kind of just showed himself from that broken window, at which point I hail him, tell him to show me his hands. He shows them for a second and then ducks back into the apartment for the remainder.
At that time, did you believe he to be the suspect?
I believed him to be related in some way. I mean, we came onto the scene with limited information, so I didn't know what the suspect was supposed to look like or what the target even was.
Your Honor, I'm going to pause this and see if we can get the audio to work. How long approximately do you hold this position back on the back of the residence?
I don't remember how long we were out there, but from the time I got there and till the time we left, that was the only position I held on the apartment.
Okay. At some point, do you all approach the residence at all?
Yes. I guess we'll see it here in a moment. After, I believe it to be after the SWAT team cleared the actual target apartment and told us that no one was inside, we approached the broken glass.
Was that the first indication that you had that this apartment was in fact not a threat to you?
Yes.
I'm going to move the clip forward just. In a second, I'm going to have you describe what we see when you begin to move. When you were in this position right here, there's other officers you testified about. Are there any, is a canine officer there? Who else was there with you?
I know there was a canine officer. He would have been to my right. Aside from that, I know there were other officers. I don't know an exact number, nor do I know who they were because they weren't my direct partners that I usually work with.
Okay. Is this dog a narcotics type dog or patrol type dog?
I believe him to be a patrol dog, but I'm not canine, nor do I know what dog it was.
Okay. Who gives you all the actual order to move up here?
I don't know that anyone gave us an order to move up to the.
So it was only SWAT that was able to indicate that they had cleared that you moved up?
If I recall correctly. Yes.
What do you see when you get to this point?
There's the glass door that's broken. That's all I was able to see. I didn't see anyone else at this point. Whoever was in there had retreated further back into the apartment.
What do you do next here as we see you walk away?
At that point, I believe I went up to the front for maybe a minute to find my partner, and then I went back to my car to go back to the First Division.
Okay. And then after returning from that portion of the apartment complex and returning to your partner, did you have any further involvement in the scene at all?
No.
You did not re-enter the scene?
No.
Those that were out back, not the canine, those officers that were out back, did they all have rifles with them?
Not all of them. I know there was probably a mix. I don't remember.
Were they all armed?
Yes, we're all armed police officers.
Okay. And when you were armed, you're pointing it at what you assessed at the time to be that apartment who you thought was the target at the time?
I was, yes.
I think those are all the questions I have for you, Officer Renaud. Thank you.
Cross-examination?
Thank you, Your Honor. Officer Renaud, when you first arrived on Springfield, you testified there was a gate.
Yes.
You remember what the condition of that gate was?
I remember that it was run through with a car. There was a light bar laying on the ground. I actually remember the radio traffic of somebody telling an officer to ram the gate.
Do you know who told the officer to ram the gate?
I do not.
When you arrived, you proceeded through the gate and went up to 3003 Springfield, correct? Or up to the area of the apartment that was at issue?
Yes, sir.
And you got out of your police cruiser and you testified you went around the back, correct?
My police cruiser was actually probably a quarter-mile back on whatever that main road is. I couldn't tell you which road it is, though. But
Well, is that because there were so many police cruisers on
Yes.
Springfield? So you walked up through the gate, correct?
that's correct.
Okay, and why did you had your rifle with you at that time?
Yes, sir.
Why did you have your rifle?
Better shooting platform and has a better flashlight than my pistol does. It's dark.
Had you been told to bring a rifle?
Not that I can recall, but somebody had just shot at police officers. So,
And so you proceeded around the back of the apartment building, correct?
yes, sir.
And why did you go around the back?
I was trying to find a helpful spot to be. I was just looking for work. The front had a lot of officers.
Okay, nobody told you to go around and cover the back?
Not that I recall.
And you testified that when you went around the back, you saw a window or a glass door with multiple bullet holes, correct?
Yes.
Were there multiple bullet holes, or was it simply broken glass?
I guess what I could see is simply broken glass.
You don't know how that glass broke, correct?
That's correct.
And it was your impression at that time that that apartment was part of the apartment that was being searched in the front, is that right?
That was my impression at the time, yes, sir.
And you indicated that you took up your position and you kept your rifle pointed at that broken door throughout that video we just saw, correct?
Yes, sir.
And why was that?
I believed it was possible there was a threat still inside the apartment.
And you later learned that the apartment was not part of the original situation, correct?
That's correct.
Could you see that apartment from the front of the building?
I'm not sure.
I don't have anything further, thank you.
Anything on redirect? You can step down, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
The Commonwealth's next witness? You may. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this will be a good time for us to go ahead and take the lunch break. So we will be in recess until 1:15, and please remember the separation admonition, and I will see you back then.
All rise for reporting jury. You have a lunch box and whatever.